All right.
Yeah, we were just sitting so close. Like...
Fascinating. Okay, so in preparation for this, I accidentally read the wrong thing.
Which one did you read?
It was less confusing, but I'm excited to talk about themes.
Okay.
Talk about the reading itself, or just go right into the discussion?
I mean, we could probably just go right into it because it really just depends on what everybody's pieces are about.
Okay.
Does anybody have an idea of like what you're gonna use as your thing? I know I'm gonna use Bach 6 as like mine.
I actually had a whole program design. It's a whole solo program, but it starts with Bach Suite 4, and then there's the Vieuxtemps Solo Capriccio in C minor, the Roja Toccata Capricciosa, and then Crystal Ship. It's a rock etude by Marshall Fine. Ooh. And my idea is like exploring the genres, but I'm trying to find like an intellectually compelling theme that encapsulates that. That's my roadblock.
I mean, for the rock, I don't know the rock etude, but I'm assuming it's kind of rock and roll-ish. So you could do something, at least with the Rocha and the rock etude, something just related to kids, like you can wear sunglasses, do something about how like classical music doesn't have to be very, refined, because that's probably what they think. They probably just think all classical music is like Bach and Mozart, but you can kind of be like, hey, you could do some like metal sounds on the instrument. But you have to wear something.
How many minutes is that program?
So it's about an hour of music. It's designed for like a concert. I didn't have a specific audience in mind. I mean, I guess just college students, but I can tailor it for
like take out
kids. But as it stands, like those 4 pieces, do you think it's too long?
I think for college it's fine, and then like for every age group you go down and remove something.
Yeah. Another consideration with your audience is you might be showing it to college students, but even some comm students don't want to sit through a 2-hour recital. So if they're familiar with music, yeah, you could play the whole piece, but if they're not, you want to keep as much as possible, but as little, that you're still keeping their attention.
Yeah, I don't know. I could just do a movement of the Bach, since I'm probably going to fill a lot of time with like talking and activities that I have yet to design as well.
Yeah, I think a movement of Bach is fine, but for the others, I don't know all of them that well. Like the Rocha, I know, isn't super long, but you have to consider how long are most songs on the radio these days that someone will actually sit and listen to.
Yeah.
It's not going to be much longer than a movement of Bach. So if
the Vieuxtemps is 5 minutes and Crystal Ship is less than 3.
Oh, okay, that helps.
And Rocha is about 7.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, maybe I could do 2 movements of Bach.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2 contrasting movements, maybe prelude in the Courant or the prelude in the Sarabande. Or prelude, Courant, and Sarabande. Was that overkill?
That's more the approach I was taking. I was thinking of, have you guys heard of the Beezer Mountain songs?
The what mountain songs?
Beezer Mountain songs. They were originally written for flute and guitar, but there's a cool arrangement for violin and guitar. And they're based off folk melodies, but they're like very extremely virtuosic. And I was just considering like how Annie had laid out the format of how much activity you have to base off of one example, that I would probably only use one of the songs, which are like 3 minutes long, and the time taken by making a composition with the audience with like folk tunes, and then a listening example with the audience would kind of encapsulate the whole time. So maybe that's what you could think of with just one movement of Bach maybe.
Okay.
What are the song, like, are they all kind of varying in character? Or are they just all kind of like showy?
Yeah, no, they I can send the link in the chat. They're varying in character. Some of them are very reminiscent of, like, one of them sounds very much like Shenandoah Valley. But they all kind of have a similar vein of a folksy sound to it. So if a series of these, outreach concerts would be an idea, then that would be a possibility.
Mhm.
Have you thought of, like, because the folk theme could be really cool, like how you would kind of introduce that to the kids? It's like through a nature sort of thing, or like, I don't know if you've thought much about it, but it sounds really cool.
No, I'm definitely still brainstorming. So any ideas? I believe they're all based off of Appalachian folk songs. The first one's a ballad, and I could make a composition with the kids where the ensemble has multiple pre-made stanzas, and then the students learn about, like, maybe ballad form and rearrange those stanzas into a song or something.
Yeah, that could be super cool.
Something you could also do, I mean, I'm cheating because I'm taking this right from the reading, but you can say, like, you can explore how, like, what compositional techniques are used to make a ballad sound sad, or is that what you just said?
No, that's a good idea. And that is something, I mean, they talked about in the text, is like making the entry point simple and not going
Yeah,
overboard.
because I had explored that in the Brahms F minor sonata. One of my little activities was like, what does crushing sound like? Like, is it high on the piano? Is it low? Is it thin or thick in texture? Is it loud? Is it soft? Major, minor, stuff like that. You could explore. Oh, cool. Thanks. And then you can maybe talk about, like, what you can do on the violin, maybe with vibrato or chords or register or dynamics. I don't know. Just spitballing here.
Yeah, I think at this stage, I'm just trying to decide on a theme, because I think, like you said, there's multiple ways I could take it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Well, try approaching it this way. What appeals to you most about them? What do you find most interesting with something you want to share with other people?
Probably the fact that it's based off of folk tunes.
Mm-hmm. Well, in that case, you might want to you could program them with what they're based in and show how they've evolved from that, like as a compositional device. You could go more that route.
I like that idea.
Mm-hmm. As far as a theme, I mean, very broadly, we have this idea of the evolution of music over time, and there's a lot you could do with that, but you could sort of take this slice of it, and just show how the original song or tune evolved, like where it came from, what it might have sounded like when people were first playing it on the violin, and then how. I don't know a lot about the history of it. You know more than I do, I'm sure, but dive into that a little bit, but not as much of a history lecture as of just this is how music was different over time and what it meant to the different people, that were playing it in different regions,
Maybe you could also do something, because a lot of the kids, especially if, we're doing young kids, like third graders, most of them probably haven't been to, like, Appalachia, and they don't know, like, some of them may not have really even seen mountains or gone hiking, so you could just start with asking them, like, what do you picture when you think of the mountains? Like, what sort of things, like cold or tall trees, and just get kind of what their idea of it is first.
Yeah, I do like that idea of, and maybe, not spending time verbally describing it, but just having like some pictures lined up while we're playing it to give that context. And the nice thing, the movement I sent is kind of one of the crazy ones. It's called Cindy, but what's nice about it, it's only 2.5 minutes. So for the younger students who have a shorter attention span, like Annie said, it's kind of high and fast in terms of energy to open with.
Can we listen to it, Matthew? Mr.
Sure.
Host?
Yeah. Let me go ahead and pull it up.
Attention spans.
Mhm.
What's that? Give me 1 second. Not really great at this whole thing. I gotta get the. That is an ad. Okay, share sound. Okay, can you see everything? Yes? Okay, even my wallpaper, that's fun. All right. It's pretty awesome.
So the guitar in that is supposed to resemble a banjo. And Carla was saying like evolution of a song. This was based off of an African American folk tale, which was in one of the earliest like American elementary songbooks. So out there somewhere is a simpler version of it that I could also introduce. Unfortunately, that style of playing was popularized through minstrel playing, which isn't something I think I'd want to go over in my outreach concert, but that's some backstory to it.
Yeah, there might be another audience for that somewhere. Maybe not with children, but if there are examples not like that. I was even thinking, because you just said it's in a songbook. You could have them sing it. You could teach them that song or some part of it, some element of it, and then that would help them with the participatory aspect. I'm also wondering, since you picked that example, I like that you showed that video, because Bridgehampton Chamber Music Festival is one that's mentioned a lot in the books we're reading as being a good example of audience engagement. And you didn't really see it in that example, but I'm wondering if they perform these a lot, if they have some kind of lecture, more demonstrative example out there. Do you know anything about that, or did you just happen to find this recording?
I don't. I'll look into that though.
Yeah.
I know the main thing that I don't know what I want to do about my program is because I know I want to center it around Bach and do something about like movement and dance, like interpretive dancing. Because I remember I had a lesson like 4 years ago with the teacher at a school, and I played Bach for her, and she's like, it's supposed to be like dance music, and she made me play it again, and she got out like a silk scarf, and she just ran around her living room like interpretively dancing to what I played. And I think it was probably the best I've ever played Bach, like emotively, just because I wasn't focusing on the music and I was just watching her, like accompanying her random movements. So I think I wanted to somehow incorporate that, like just expressions of emotion as an entry point. But I haven't decided yet if I want to either like focus on one suite and go through like all of the 6th suite and kind of, you know, the prelude is very joyous and have them express joy, and then, you know, the slower ones. Or if I wanted to just like focus on all the preludes and just do all the 6 different preludes and then do like the different emotions in each prelude, because they're all, you know, very different in character. So I have no idea what would be better to focus on, if you guys had any opinion.
I think staying in one suite is a good idea. I just think that going after all the preludes is really difficult, because I think the outer movements of all the suites are just the hardest things in the whole world, especially all of them. But yeah, as far as like giving your audience, kids, a means to articulate how they respond to them, I think the dancing aspect is a good idea. That's something I haven't considered a lot, but Dr. Ryan has done that a lot with me too in my lessons. Like, I'll play Bach and then she'll start dancing around the room. It's pretty insane. But it's just fascinating, and good luck. I wish I had more to say.
Not to spice it up, but I actually think that maybe doing just, you know, I know it'll be more work, but maybe sticking to the same format of a song in different contexts, just, you know, in terms of teaching a new topic to a student, if they can transfer it to different scenarios, they're gonna learn it more concretely than if you show them like 6 different kinds of dance steps or dance styles representing Bach, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you mean so you're agreeing with Matthew, like focusing on.
No, she's taking the opposite.
Oh no, the opposite. Oh,
like doing all of the allemands, you know, so that you can say, this is what an allemande is. Now that you've learned what makes it what it is, here it is, like in a different setting, in a different key. Instead of saying, this is a prelude. Okay, now here's an allemande, or here's a sarabande. You know, they'll probably be a little bit overloaded.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that actually, like just teaching them what the actual movements are. I was just gonna kind of like very freestyle, just like them moving. But that could also, yeah, like allemande, like just teach them the big 2-step and have them do that. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, if we were gonna actually seriously pursue that, we'd probably want to get some kind of dance instructor involved.
I
don't think you're gonna teach kids Baroque dance, but I can see this going either way. Is with the Bach suites, at least, I've always thought it would be really interesting, especially since a cello teacher told me this. Is there's like some guy who wrote a book about how the Bach cello suites represent the Christian life cycle. I've talked to you about this. Yeah, I thought it would be cool to do a concert on that, but just like pick a representative movement from each suite and then just talk about that a little bit. Like that would really be a good concert for a church, maybe not as much as school, but you could do it that way. But I also like your idea of incorporating the movement. Just if you do that, you have to be careful that it's structured enough, but still fun for them. Because think of like when Joe Kovac did his interpretive dance in studio class, and it was really entertaining, but it was not really helpful in any way with envisioning Bach. It helped you in that case in the last one, but that was just one-on-one. And I'm thinking when you get a group of kids, you might rile them up a lot by doing that so that they're not going to pay attention to what's going on, or you might make them uncomfortable and they won't want to do it if it's older kids. So you have to be specific enough with it. It can work. You know, you just have to give them some kind of directive so they know what they're doing. That's not quite trying to teach Baroque dance steps. But there's some around there, you know what I mean?
Like anyone younger than 9 or anyone older than 9, I wouldn't even say dance. Like, at least when you're telling them what to do, maybe telling them afterwards, like, this is a dance movement. And not even, you know, like when we start middle schoolers with singing, we won't tell them like they're singing. We'll just be chanting and then like long, long vowels, you know. And it doesn't have to be, like you said, a controlled environment. It can just be like their hands moving on like the big beats in 2 and 3.
Yeah.
That's good.
What is 9? Is 9 third?
What do you mean?
What grade is 9?
9 is fourth grade.
Okay, so 3rd grade's fine. Yeah, I did think about that a little bit, that like, you know, you get them into middle school and of course they're not gonna wanna dance in front of each other. I was also wondering, I don't think this could happen anytime soon because it'd take more work, but if we wanted to do like this idea more, find some like another student who's in the dance department and somebody who's willing to also join this. So remember there was were you in Coffin, they had the colloquium with the ballet dancer who came.
Oh,
and she kind of did that. It was I think it was Buckler, or maybe it was Adam. I don't remember who it was. They had him play just like Swan Lake or different like ballet excerpts, and then she was just like dancing across the room, and it was about like how movement and emotion is like expressed through like the dance and that. So that's also where I kind of got the idea from. So somehow we could find a ballet dancer here who's willing to do the outreach concerts, and then they can kind of like lead the kids through it.
Something else you can consider in the, I'm going off of the dance idea. I'm trying to think how you can express to a bunch of kids the counterpoint in the cello suites, but I don't know if you've thought about that at all.
An idea for this, you could very simply, I mean, kids are going to be able to hear the difference between high and low parts, and voicing is huge in the cello suites, you know, just using different strings, and that's something they could even see, you know, just be like, this is the C string, that it's in a physically different place on the instrument, and just to bring that to their attention is how the line switches. That could be something that would help them listen to it more intently.
Perhaps mentioning that as an, well, I guess you can't really do that because that's multiple entry points, but I was just going to say using visual cues perhaps on the instrument as a means to indicate certain aspects of a dance or a dance that's being done. You can say, oh, well, she's moving this way because I'm playing it as such, or something to that effect.
Yeah, going off of, it could be like when I play these low notes or whatever on the C string, stomp, or like clap when you play the high note, you know, something like that.
Or like split up maybe.
Yeah.
Big group.
Yeah. And you can just focus on the rhythms too.
The rainstorm dance that I don't know who talked about it, but they were saying like, you know, it might have been Annie, how they'll break up a audience and part of them will be, that's like a huge orff thing that people love to do. And you could show counterpoint, like going off Matthew was saying, by being like, okay, now we're all like doing thunder together, but now we're going to offset it slightly by someone doing something, you know, a little bit different. And then finding a section in the counterpoint where it lines up and play it lined up and then be like, now we're going to offset it by 1. Now this is, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that would be so cool. I need to plan it more. That'd probably be easiest to do like in the prelude. But yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, the prelude is replete with that sort of thing. Are you playing it in as Bach intended?
What does that mean?
What do you mean?
I guess in D major.
Oh yes.
And covered wig.
We're
Yes,
cellists,
Matthew.
Matthew.
Yeah, all right, 6 octaves. I yield.
The way God intended, not.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right. I was just curious.
No, I know. No. It's a good question. Yeah, I'm doing it in D major.
What if both of us played it at the same time, and then like one of us would play the low parts and one of us would play the high parts to make it easier for them? Yeah.
That's a good idea. I thought you were about to say, what if I just played it in G and just did it in fifth?
I don't think it helps them understand. Yeah, but it would be entertaining for us, maybe.
You could order custom hats like bass and soprano.
Matthew, quick question, not really related. Does anybody play in D or no? Any violists?
What?
Do any violists play it in D or do they all play it in G major?
There was one violist who played it in D, and it was Lillian Fuchs, but everybody plays it in G.
Doesn't Chaba play it in D?
Okay, there are 2 violists who played it.
Like something he would do. But then
Yeah, it's violinistic to play it in D. Dr. Ryan doesn't recommend it be played in D. I don't know. Scholarship is divided on this. I like it both ways, but I don't think there's a right way to play it, because it can be played on guitar, it can be played on lute, viola da gamba. So who's to say there's even a right instrument? But this is getting off topic.
It's all just music. Does anybody play cello on G or no?
why would you do that? No.
Elliot, do you have any pieces or themes swimming around that you want to discuss?
Yeah, my piece is the Toccata and Fugue in D minor.
Cool. Do you have a theme in mind or a way to present that to, say, 4th graders?
Well, not exactly. I know 2 things. One, it's probably the most common form of Halloween music, and then 2, I mean, the first part's toccata. If in case you don't know what a toccata is, it is a virtuosic display of technique, often used in the Baroque era. And then there's the fugue, and obviously, like you can probably play a game of identifying where the subject and counter subject is, but the way to go about it, I have no clue. And especially with the toccata part, I'm not quite sure how to go about trying to, I guess, explain in a fun way that is like a flourishing first half of the piece.
I'm thinking off the top of my head, like rock and roll. Like when I think of that piece, I think of the beginning of Thunderstruck. But maybe there's a way you can look at Bach's compositional techniques as a means of like making this music sound sort of. I mean, it's an atypical Baroque piece or form, but I'm just trying to think of how you can make it accessible.
You could also do perhaps what I think Annie said they did with the Aurora Symphony. Like you could start by playing the toccata like just really straight, maybe like remove embellishments and then say, okay, let's define what virtuosity is and then how do I make it sound like that? I mean, you'd have to probably practice it a bunch of different ways in order to be flexible to whatever the audience throws at you. So maybe give multiple choice. And then like you could be like, okay, well now I'm going to play how it's written and tell me, how they achieve that sound. Maybe.
Just as a practical question, how are you going to play it? Because it's an organ piece.
Good question, because it's also arranged for solo violin.
Well, that would make so you're gonna play it on violin. That's the answer to my question.
You're gonna play it on the organ.
What? You think I'm gonna play on organ? Come on.
I've just never heard the violin transcription, so I mean, I would have to listen to it to give you advice on that. But kind of going off of what I said to Tekla, you could show them the organ recording. They're probably kids are going to know that piece because they've heard it somewhere. That is actually one that they would be familiar with. So you could just show them a little bit of an organ recording or something, and then show them how it's different on violin, and talk about that, and how the instrument's different. That could lend itself well to instrument demonstration, but you know, also the aspects of how it's different. What is unique on the violin when you're playing this piece versus the organs? You know, the organ.
Okay. I kind of like Tekla's idea. Especially with the, when she was talking about the toccata, I think what might be a good idea is if I like demonstrated techniques, I guess violin techniques that are featured in the toccata, but also just, typical licks that you'll find in maybe things like Wieniawski or Sarasate, that may also be prevalent in other pieces of stable violin repertoire. But maybe I should explain that first, and then demonstrate techniques featured in the toccata, and then finding a way to see if they can identify the techniques in the toccata by playing the thing and in context.
So it might have been two set violin or something, but there was this group that went out and they played for a bunch of kids, and they were like to the kids, okay, dab if you think we sound good. But I'm thinking you can have some kind of gesture where it's like, okay, do this or something when you think I'm playing like a rock star, because I think what you're trying to do with all the like Sarasate, Wieniawski licks is like playing like a diva, and conveying that in Bach is an interesting challenge. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I'm trying to think of a way you can make that aspect interactive, because they're not going to know like, oh, what are some ways that how does a rock star sound? Like, what do you think of? Right?
I would say this goes kind of along with Tekla and how like you could play it like completely straight once and then teach them, like maybe show them what a trill is or something. And I don't know if this would work, but maybe you could pick like a volunteer or a couple kids and have signs, like one says faster, one says slower, one says trill, or different things. And have like the kids stand up in the front where you can see them and the audience can see them, and you just play it, and whatever they make you do, you just have to do it. It'll be hard, but just so like they could see how subjective like interpreting something is.
You remember the busking jukebox I showed you guys? That's like kind of the same idea.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Where you just have to do whatever they tell you to do.
Yeah, I like that because you're allowing them to give you input. That would go along with giving them a chance to compose the music almost, because you play it straight, you can play it the way it's supposed to be, but just show them how some of those elements work, and then let them tell you what ornaments to add in, so it's like their interpretation, but you're playing it.
I think the subject would be really effective in inspiring the kids, though. I mean, anything virtuosic.
Also, like, I know Bach writes in scalular fashion a lot, especially in especially in toccatas, because he'll outline a D minor scale, but he'll say like he'll add something in, maybe like a drone tone, like an A on the bottom, and so I could just play the passage without the added ornamentation or the drone or whatever feature he adds. Just play it straight, like a straight D minor scale, as if I took it away. But then I could ask them like, okay, what do you want me to add to make this more interesting? I'd have to figure out some way in which what they ask of me is practical to play, you know. And so, well, what if I did what Bach wrote by adding this, and then I play it?
I think that's a good idea, but you might want to be careful in that you aren't like giving them a right answer. Do this in a way that presents like a no fail zone. And something else along that line, something else you could seriously consider is doing this with at least one test audience, just to be prepared for whatever those kids throw at you. Because someone could just hold up the trill sign the whole time, and that would suck.
Yeah.
Along the same lines of setting parameters, I think it'd be really important to define what interesting is. Because like Matthew said, if all the kids hold all their signs up at once, it will definitely be interesting. But like really finding what your goal is in the character of the piece and then simplifying that.
Another way to do this would be to just, I mean, you'd have to pick a couple elements like trill, or I don't know, what's another kind of word, like a mordant, except that's the same thing, or vibrato, you know, if you wanted to do sense of vibrato, and you could be like, okay, kids, a trill is one finger, vibrato is two fingers, and then just play it the way Bach intended, like you were saying, and then have them hold up the fingers whenever that thing happens. So it's like they're participating and you're getting them to identify it, you know.
Yeah, aiming their listening at a specific thing, I think is the best way to go about that. Just because they're not well versed in this subject at all. Or you can do something with the fugue where it's like, oh, this is the subject, here's a counter subject, do the finger thing when you hear one or the other as well. But does that make sense? I like to understand where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you would also be hard pressed to get them to do a lot of like significant reflection as well. But try to, I don't want to say dumb down your topic, but like really focus on making it accessible. I think it's a good one. And I'm curious to see what you come up with.
Carly, do you want to go over yours?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. So I have Liggity, and the most obvious thing I could go with is the contrast between the movements, because the first one's a slow movement, the second is very virtuosic. But something that's particularly interesting in his compositional style, and especially the first movement, is the way figures trade back and forth. And in fact, in the first, it's representing a conversation he's having with someone, he's imagining it, like it never actually happened. And I feel like there's a way to get kids to relate to that, but it's kind of abstract at the same time, like maybe thinking of an imaginary friend or something. But when you're actually going through the piece, it's very clear where one thing starts and another happens, because there's this one theme, it's back with this pizzicato glissando thing that isn't really typical in any repertoire, really. But I'm just trying to figure out how I would present that in a way and what I'd get the kids to do to make them get it.
So you said it's clear when it trades back and forth in the conversation?
Oh, yeah. They're very distinct.
I mean, are there like clear shifts in the tone of the conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's something there, you know, have play one example of the conversation and then be like, I don't know, what kind of tone of the conversation is this, and how, you know, maybe what are the people saying right now?
Mm-hmm.
You could have maybe two volunteers come up and pantomime the conversation. Like you can have one person be this theme, and then the other person can be this theme. And then as you're playing the movement, you can sort of have them do gestures and things to sort of dictate what that conversation is to them.
Yeah.
Also, are the movements long, you think? Because with fourth,
4 minutes a piece, and I wouldn't even play the whole thing.
they're what? Sorry?
Each one is 4 minutes, and I would not play the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How long is the whole thing?
8 minutes. There's only 2 movements.
Wait, did you say, wait, how long?
It's 8 minutes total. Each of the movements are 4 minutes long. The first one is a slow movement. The second is a caprice.
Okay, then that means, okay. I guess that means I would have to cut my piece too somehow, because mine is almost 10 minutes long.
No, we're not worrying about that yet. But yes, you're gonna have to cut it. We all are. But
Oh, that sucks.
that's besides the point right now. I was thinking something else I could do is have them sing the pizzicato part and like have the audience do that or get a couple volunteers or something, and I would sing or play the other theme and trade back and forth because it's just a glissando. So I mean they could sing that pretty easily and it would probably be fun for them too.
Do you think maybe, I don't know if this would depend on the age.
Yeah.
But I don't know how it works. Is it so like you're pitzing that also playing?
Oh, in the piece?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just you pits and then while it's still vibrating.
I wonder if you could have like a volunteer, like how Annie had like a kid in their quartet, like just pluck.
Oh, they could pluck the
to have a
string.
kid like
Yeah,
stand out there and
that would
stand
be
next to
fun.
pluck it and then you do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else. Is there anything else in the piece that you could use that? Like a kid doing something while you play too?
Not in the second movement. In the first one, yeah, but that's just one thing, you know, there's gonna be more to it than that.
Is this a solo sonata?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
I think what else? I don't really know it. I should know it. I don't.
Mhm.
I don't really.
Okay.
I think, Harley, you're right on the money with conversation entry point.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's just that abstract element of it is it's not actually a conversation that's happening. It's a conversation you're imagining happening with someone you want to talk to, but you're not. You know. So
Just make them.
What age range do you think you'd be doing this with?
what?
What age range? I can't speak today. What age range would you be doing this with?
I mean, it would be a lot easier. I think if we were talking middle schoolers or high schoolers, they get it. But I'm struggling with younger kids. Like, what do I say to them so they'll understand that?
Younger kids just struggle with abstract thought like that.
Maybe just ask
That's
them.
impossible, but
You got to give them a visual image the best you can and in a way that's fun.
You know what I'm thinking is, you know how in the cartoons sometimes they have that with a little thought bubble and it's like you imagine a different scene? You could maybe something like that, you know, that would be familiar to them.
Mm-hmm. Or
I
maybe
think that's where Matthew's idea of pantomiming it and acting it out might come in handy.
Yeah.
You could modify that to where it's like, well, one person is this imaginary friend. You can explain the abstract premise to begin with, label the participants accordingly, just so there's a visual representation of that as well.
Sure.
one thing I would worry about a tiny bit is like, is it pretty like sad, like dark-ish, like angry? Because you'll like, you know, if you're having them act it out.
It
I don't
doesn't
know
sound
it.
like most of the good eat. It actually sounds really romantic.
Okay, then
It's
it's,
kind
I
of
was just
strange.
worried that like if it's
Yeah.
very like, you know, you're having them act out and it's like, you know, angry and like arguments and it's something happens like where Annie said the kid said it sounds like somebody's stabbing somebody.
I'll have to think about that.
Like some like
I mean, it's not happy music, but I don't know if they'd get that. They could, I suppose.
So I'm worried
That's a
like,
good point.
if they bring in like somehow I don't know if the
Uh.
kid's going through something like at home and somehow they translate like
Yeah.
arguing. So I was thinking like what if you did it like like think of a movie where like Star Wars or something, I don't know, where like there's a similar like thing happening.
I haven't seen Star Wars, but
I know, I don't know the piece. I don't like something like that. So it isn't just their like thinking of these like thoughts just on their own. But also I don't know it. It might not be
Mhm.
that angry. I mean, you said it's more romantic, so it might be fine. I don't know,
Mhm.
I have to listen to it. But we don't want any kids stabbing each other.
No.
While you're playing. So.
No. This is an interesting point of view of Elliot's bathroom, I think.
think they're tuning pianos right now.
I hear that, yeah. They're always tuning pianos. They probably can't hear that, though.
Do you have any more thoughts or questions on the Liggity Parley, or?
I mean, just if there's anything else I can do, but if you don't know the piece, I don't know that.
Yeah, I'll have to listen to it and get back to you, especially about using like a test audience. That's something I want to make abundantly clear too, is that like we should carve out time to test these on, at the very least, each other before we go out into the wild and try them.
Yeah.
That's what we end up coming up with.
Classes.
Something
I think
like that.
studio class would be fine. Like I'm sure Greg would be fine with like any of you guys coming, testing it out on the cellist.
Yeah, we have to schedule the concerts first. But I guess the conversational aspect is key. And something else I was thinking of for the second movement is there are a lot of patterns that repeat over and over again, but then they change like over a bar line or something, and you can hear that. I don't expect them to understand the meter change, but maybe if there was some way I could have them give a signal like when it's different or something.
Right. Yeah, you could probably very easily utilize your studio as a test audience as well. Although I don't know to what degree of bias there will be or how that will influence your performance.
Well, I was thinking we could do some pop-up concerts on campus as a test audience to see. Well, we won't get feedback from them, that's the problem, but just to get experience doing the program. I mean, I remember I sat in as a test audience for something that Harrison and I don't know, Taylor, so whoever was in the Sinfonia quartet at that time, I just sat in and watched with Stillwell or something. You can just ask some people, hey, we're gonna rehearse at whatever time, can you come watch? You know, and hopefully someone will show up.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But if I could selfishly bring the conversation back to my idea, like just using the solo piece, Crystal Ship, it's like a rock ballad. So I guess I would focus more on like how do you play, like, I mean, branching off what I said to Elliot, how do you play like a rock star? So I haven't given it a lot of thought, but I'm curious to hear your suggestions.
Just thinking, if you ask kids that, probably you're going to get something more physical than actually musical, which might be okay, depending on what you're going for. But I wouldn't want that to be like they're probably just going to tell you to shake your hair or something, because that's what they would think of as rock.
Yeah.
Hold your viola like a guitar, or, you know, which could be fun, but you have to think about maybe what their response could be and how you would execute that.
Right. Because my idea is like, well, it was what Erica said in the beginning, because I think it's a good one. Classical can be cool. We can play in different styles.
Maybe you could ask them in the beginning, like just very open, like what they think of when they think of classical music, like what words, and they'll probably say stuff like nice and quiet. I don't know exactly what they would say, but it'd probably be along the lines of that, and you could be like, oh, is this what you think of? And then play an excerpt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can do intimate.
Like, just not, yeah.
I just thought of something. So I used to work at the summer camp for like 7 years, and they have like guest speakers come in every Thursday. That's a venue over a summer or a period of time that we could utilize. But anyway, that's off topic. Yeah, that's a good idea, Erica. Like probing that breach of expectation.
You could also contact TYO and see if some kids would be willing to come early for sectionals for, like, one of your demonstrations.
That's not a bad
I
idea.
think Laurel is the viola coach. So
Yeah,
they
she
have-
is. I can contact her about that.
Maybe you could also down the line, I don't know how open you would be to this, because I know if it were me, it would take some convincing. But do you know anybody with an electric viola?
I had one and I sold it to Justin Castro.
Well, you could maybe do that, like start on your viola and have it as a surprise, like at the end, like
Oh, that's such a good idea.
for your amp.
I sold him my amp too.
Oh, why, Matthew?
I wasn't using it anymore.
I know.
I mean, you could just get a viola with a pickup and kind of.
I mean, I'm sure Justin would. Oh wait, is he leaving? Did he
I
graduate?
think he's gone.
No, he's around next year too.
Yeah, you could just. I'm sure he'd let you borrow it.
Yeah. It's not a great model, but I won't get a new one. I'll see what I can do. That's a really good idea.
I wonder what that would sound like. Do you know, like playing?
Yeah, I played it a little bit before I sold it. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you've listened to any like electric guitar with bow on it. It's a lot like that. It's like it's consistently very. It depends on the amp too, but it's very grainy. Like if you consider the attack of a guitar sound, an electric guitar sound, it's like that, but sustained.
Interesting.
I know a lot of amps rely on like the clarity or the fading of the hammer stroke. We don't get that with the bow. Cool. Well, thanks.
And I think we hit everybody's, unless anybody else has more questions about their theme.
I have a more general question for the group. Is for the purpose of this workshop project, would you all rather try to put together something that all of us can perform together, like with our respective solo pieces, or do you want to try and make a program that you could do by yourself, or maybe with just a couple other people?
I think that kind of depends because we still don't know exactly how many other people are going to be doing this right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think because of what Erica said, maybe something that would be more accessible for solo work, just so that it would be more flexible in nature in case we don't know who's going to be joining.
So maybe just keep it individual things.
Oh, I mean on the concert program though, would it be like My Liggity, Your Box Suites,
Yeah.
the Toccata, like everyone at once or some combination? Or do we each want to do our own thing with solo rep? That's what I'm asking.
On a bona fide concert or an outreach concert?
I think it depends on how long each of our things are going to be.
I'm sorry, I don't really understand. So
Like we would combine each of our things, you know, like Carly goes for 20 minutes and I go for 20 minutes after. Like they're separate.
This question is important because this whole time we're like kind of talking about themes, but really just going over what we're actually going to be doing, not an overall theme. So what we need to figure out is, do we want to combine whatever repertoire we're doing into one themed concert that we can all present together, or do we all want to come up with our own themes in our own programs? That's what I'm asking.
Is that a separate question from would it be an ensemble or solo work?
We're assuming it's all solo.
I think for now, I'm thinking just keep them completely separate.
Okay.
Unless we want to like, we could do both maybe, like it depends, like if we're doing like a presentation, like maybe for donors or something, we could combine them, but like when we're just going out to schools, maybe we can find like two, but I don't think we should do more, because that would just be either a lot of different themes or it will be hard. We kind of have to rethink everything we've been thinking to make our themes fit together.
How long are you thinking like each outreach concert would be?
I think if we're sticking with third graders for now, which might be our first, or just like, you know, elementary school, I don't think longer than 30 minutes, probably.
30, 45, yeah. If we're going into a school, I don't know that we can expect them to give us much more time than that anyhow.
Yeah, I'd plan for a half hour.
I have a maybe a small suggestion in case we find that doing an overall theme is better than doing individual themes. Because like the thing about classical music that I think is different from other genres, like what the kids listen to nowadays, is that, and I guess there's something that's similar and then something that's different. The similar thing, or I guess the different thing, is that classical music
a lot of what like we're playing is built on motivic units. And so if we wanted to do like a similar, all right, whatever. Hey, I'm just trying to take my sister to the dealership right now. I'm like juggling like 3 things at once. Sorry.
It's okay. We appreciate you being here. It's just entertaining.
This what, whatever. I guess what I get when I'm home. What was I saying? Oh, right. So many of our pieces are built off of motivic unity. And if we wanted to go that route where if we were just sharing the same theme, that is what would be probably the best theme. As to how we would approach that theme or kind of show it off, I'm not sure. And then the things like similar to what popular music is that there's something that catches them. It's like something that's catchy. So motives in music is already a catchy thing. Like you can, like how Annie was talking about how they played a game of signs or whatever, to, when they were playing. It's just an idea we wanted to do, just one overall theme, if that's what you're going for, Carly.
Yeah, that's an idea. That could work. I'm just thinking now with the time constraint, it's, sorry. No!
I got it.
Okay, I don't know if you lost us there, but I was just gonna say, if we're actually only doing a 30-minute concert, usually the guideline is that it should be about a 30 to 70 balance of playing to talking, or possibly even less playing. So essentially, if your piece is anything longer than 5 or 6 minutes, I mean, yeah, we're not going to be able to combine more than 2 at once, and that would be like a movement of Bach and something, it would have to be really short. So I think we probably should do separate ones in that case. That makes sense. Yeah. So Matthew, I know you were talking about doing a lot of different things. I would maybe pick one and stick with it, like how you're gonna draw that, whatever you think would be the most engaging, because at least for what we're gonna start doing, you're not gonna have enough time to play all that. You're just not. I might even just do the first movement of Liggity in that case, because that didn't really occur to me until now. But these concerts are more about the talking and what you get the audience to do than what you're actually playing, almost in a way, to the end of getting them to better understand the music. But in order to do that, you have to break it up for them a lot. So you're not going to be playing through like you would for a normal concert, I guess, especially with this age group, if that makes sense.
It also kind of depends with what different people's themes, because there are some that would be easier. I think we can decide this more when we have like our scripts and prayers more decided.
Mm-hmm.
But I think overall it would be better to keep them separate, and then we can work from there.
Yeah. We can definitely do something combining them in the future, but I think at least who knows what's going to happen after this summer. For these 8 weeks, we should just stick with separate and each of us develop our own. And then there might be some way to combine them, and we can go off that once we actually get to performing. But these are just intended to be drafts that we could possibly perform for the outreach concerts, but yeah, that's really it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that outreach concerts should be solo and simple so as not to overstimulate our audience and create a logistical, mental, and dare I say spiritual nightmare. I think it's definitely possible and a novel idea in and of itself to combine these things. I would very much like to do that for donors and stuff. I think that'd be really interesting if we were to take maybe 20 minutes and really optimize what we want to do, and then maybe take 3 people or 3 pieces and have an hour-long concert where it's like a mini, I don't want to say like lecture series, but I don't know what the word would be, but I think that would be really cool. Just exploring all those genres and like probing what we like about different things.
Okay, the donor concert is a separate thing because if we're playing for that audience, they're already familiar with classical music. So
Okay, yeah, right. I just used them as an example. But if we wanted to do like a special recital at school or in the community or something.
yeah, that's the idea. Is these techniques are adaptable. You know, it's just you're adapting them for each audience because third graders are gonna be different than comm students. They're gonna be different from donors.
Yeah, I mean, my point is, I think both have their merits. But along what Erica was saying, I think we'll be better equipped to understand what those are when we have developed them more ourselves.
I know the majority does not agree with this, but I kind of agree with what Elliot is saying. I think it would be helpful to have a theme, at least for the first couple ones, just because like facing a group of third graders can be terrifying. And if you do have other people sharing your theme, you can kind of tag team it a little bit more. And you know what Matthew was saying in terms of like simulating, doing what Elliot suggested of like using themes and motives in different contexts. But I may have completely misinterpreted what you guys meant by individual work.
This could maybe, because I do see, yeah, it would be nice to have like at least one other person up there with you. I'm wondering if maybe as we make our programs, there'll probably be some intersection between some of them. Like already I could see like somehow Matthew and Elliot's could go together where Matthew is like showing the rock side and then Elliot's doing notes virtuosic, like showing how cool and showy the violin can be. And then maybe combine it in that way. I don't know if like that just depends on where each of our themes go.
The only problem I see in doing that for outreach is that one of us isn't going to be playing. So we have to find a way to stay engaged with whatever the other one's doing so as not to cultivate any disinterest or lack of focus among our audience.
Yeah, here's the thing is, when I was saying individual, I meant that we'd each have our own theme, but I'm not sure if you got that technical or just saying it's better to have more than one person at once. But given the time constraint we have, I just don't think it's feasible for us to do that unless we were doing chamber groups, which we're not, and we could do down the road. But at this point, I'm just trying to get through these 8 weeks and like have you guys get something out of this, because I don't know if we're even going to get to that point. But if we at least have the individual scripts and we all come up with our own theme, I think we'll all have our own good ideas out of that could be combined in the future, and then we can do something with that, you know. But I don't want to make you do all of the work to figure that out and then we never use it. That's why I'm doing this. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Again, I'm sure we'll all know more about our own preferences and the possibility of entertaining them as we develop these ideas further. What an exciting process this is. This is going to be fun. You know, because I can't wait to hear everyone's things. And for those of you at home watching, feel free to join in. Just, you know, come up with a theme, some repertoire, and maybe some things you can do based on the Wallace and the Booth readings. But we'd love to have you all come in on these meetings and talk about them with us. It'd be really fun.
Yeah, I think we're good for today.
Yeah, the idea is just to keep workshopping this. I think we're meeting on Thursday, and then next week we have off. So just keep consulting the readings. There's a great resource in there. If you have like the starting point and idea of what you want to do, it's really helpful to go back to them just to get some ideas as you continue to develop your own script. So that's what we're going to keep doing, keep giving each other feedback. Yeah. And we'll be here on Thursday at 4 p.m.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank
Thank
you,
you everyone
guys.
for coming and sharing your time with us this afternoon. See you all around.
Bye.